Hello, hello, my beloved waking gods and goddesses. Maria West here. Welcome to Love, Truth, and Beauty, episode 277, our 36th installment of Love, Truth, and Beauty Quickie Kiss. Keep it simple, sexy, rant. And today's video isn't so much of a rant as it is an important reminder to allow yourself to gift and receive whenever, however appropriate, the precious gift and act of self-care and self-love of verbal ventilation, also known as venting complicated feelings and experience past and present traumatic experiences or reoccurring themes. Now, whether you are the safe space container for a beloved to vent their feelings, okay, or you are the one in need of care to vent, make sure that you only vent to those friends and beloveds in your most trusted inner spheres and circles who are self-aware enough and capable of not just holding space for you, but capable of empathy, true empathy, not feigning it and pretending, okay? So true empathy and conscious listening, okay? Now, I've got several groups going on presently, and the biggest complaint and lament I'm hearing about in terms of what's missing in everyone's life is a true friend who can hold a safe space and just listen. Okay, I keep hearing it. I've got no one to talk to and no one who will hold space for me just to listen. Okay, I feel you. Now, for myself, I have a few longtime friends who can occasionally hold that level of conscious space for me. But for the most part, over the years, I have literally paid tens of thousands of dollars for that level of care through supervision and paid listening, or do it myself. And it's only been recently that I have actually up-leveled my inner circle with two new beloveds, a man and a woman, more than capable of listening to the venting of my reality and challenges, okay? Now, for what I do, not everybody wants to hear that stuff, okay? So that these two can actually listen to me, my reality, my challenges, my stuff, without interrupting me or bonding me with the, oh, you too, and then ending up hijacking the conversation such that the tables are now turned. And once again, I'm forced by default to hold space for them instead of them holding the space for me, or trying to troubleshoot or fix me or the situation with possible solutions, even though I never asked for that, inserting their opinion or feigning concern, yet being distracted by their phone or computer or lack of presence. Okay, you know that one. When you're endeavoring to tell someone, vent to someone who's agreed to listen to you and they are distracted. They've already checked out, okay? Now, many of you lament that your significant others are not available for such a space and you're resenting them. Now, while this may be hard to hear, I'm going to tell you right now, let that be okay. Okay, now some of us are blessed in that department, but most of us are not. I am not one of those lucky ones blessed with a partner who wants to listen. Okay, my guy does not want to listen to me vent about the latest human trafficking atrocities and abuses that I just happen to have heard about while doing research or getting an email from a viewer or listening to a client or a survivor student. And nor does he want to hear the details of some of my childhood atrocities that still haunt me. Okay, so beware. Now, Pete Walker, the author of the most excellent book, which I highly recommend, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, describes verbal ventilation as the golden pathway to intimacy. Now, in my humble opinion, verbal ventilation is an underrated resolver of emotional flashbacks. Now, as witnessed firsthand in my own private practice, trauma survivor's ability to masterfully engage and utilize verbal ventilation moves the survivor from victim to victorious. Okay, now theoretical neuroscience sees verbal ventilation as a powerful tool that remediates brain changes due to complex PTSD. As the potency of verbal ventilation, my loves, can be summed up as the therapeutic process of bringing left brain cognition to intense right brain emotional activation. Now, through regular engagement of verbal ventilation, new neural pathways grow that allow the left-right brain to synchronize and work together so that the person can think and feel simultaneously, process the flashback, and not lose consciousness during the flashback. How awesome is that? Now, there is a Chinese saying that goes like this: joy shared is doubled. Sorrow shared is halved. Okay, very important. Now, the gift of venting is to reduce stress levels and discharge and neutralize excess potential energies in every direction so as to not to garner balancing forces, as in reality transurfing. Now, the act of disclosing stress is a coping mechanism. Venting is a two-way process, the person venting and hearing the vent. Positive venting reduces stress, but negative venting can lead to heightened stress and physical health concerns. It's not just about the person venting, but equally important, the person hearing the vent, okay? Now, I know a lot of people who think that when they repeat their story over and over and over again, that this is about venting. It's not, okay? So there's a big difference. So, and I can't tell you what the fine line is. So it's something that you have to feel into. And I really encourage each of you who find yourselves in this position where if you catch yourself repeating a story over and over and over again, is it helpful to actually talk about it? Or perhaps you're not getting to the kernel of the flashback or the PTSD or the core issue that seems to repeat and loop, okay? Now, the difference between positive and negative venting can be focused on how the person hearing the vent responds through speech, action, and body language, okay? Now, I've had these experiences where I've tried to vent to a person who agreed, and you can tell by their body language, you know, they're kind of turned this way, not looking at you, fidgeting and all that kind of stuff, all right? And so the research supports numerous counseling theories and models focused on active listening, such as empathy and safety. So what is active listening, kids? When people vent, they may not need or want a verbal response. I know I don't much of the time. They want someone to just listen. For a moment, stop and think about the last time you felt heard. How did you know that you were heard? What did the person listening do to convey that he or she heard you? Now think about a time when you didn't feel heard. What made you believe that the listener was not listening to or hearing you? So in examples of inadequate listening include thinking about other things, tuning out the other person, listening partially or only in fragments, you know, listening for keywords, or rehearsing or thinking in your head about what we as the listeners will say next. Okay, getting distracted by notification chimes on your techie devices. Yes, you know that iPhone, that chime? Yes, we've all done it. I've done it. Now, when communicating with people, we should use active listening, defined as behavior that communicates interest and understanding using verbal and non-verbal messages shared in conversation. Now, non-verbal messages, we're talking body language here, because body language, my loves, is a foolproof indicator of conscious listening or lack thereof. All right? So one of the things that we have to do in terms of active listening, in terms of body language, is to face your person squarely. Very, very important that you're not angled away this way or that way, or body crossed. Keep your posture open, your heart open, okay? No cross legs, no cross arms. Oh, leaning toward the person that you're listening to, maintaining eye contact, okay? Not crazy eye contact, but eye contact, soft eye contact, and also being relaxed in all of the behaviors that I just talked about, the open posture, the leaning toward the person, the eye contact, the square position where they are directly in front of you and you are meeting them, okay? Now, we can adequately listen by intentionally shifting our focus internally, in our minds, and externally through the body language toward the person speaking. Now, let's talk about empathy and sympathy. Now, a viewer recently wrote me and requested that I address the difference between empathy and sympathy, because there is a lot of confusion about that. They're not the same thing. Empathy validates a person's feelings. Sympathy does not acknowledge the feelings involved. Empathy is active, where sympathy is passive. Empathy is an emotionally charged concept to unpack, but essentially at its core, okay? Empathy means putting yourself in someone else's shoes, okay? Now, we know this does not mean you physically trade shoes with the person who is venting. Instead, you imagine yourself in their situation. What would you feel like experiencing what they are experiencing? Put yourself there. Empathy allows us to connect with the person where he or she is emotionally in that moment. Now, too often we bypass spiritually, emotionally, mentally, whatever, empathy, and try to place a silver lining over another person's situation who's venting to you. Okay, we say things like, oh, it's not that bad, it could be worse, or at least it's not as bad as this. Okay, these are fucked up things to say. Don't go there. You're not helping the situation, okay? You're not helping the situation. These phrases show precisely a lack of empathy and inadequate listening. Instead, use phrases like, I'm sad that that happened to you. I wish I could change this for you. Or, I'm here for you. Sympathy is focused on feeling sorry for the person. Now, let's talk about creating a safe space. This concept should not be confused with the recent media exploitations of safe spaces, okay, for those offended and emotionally triggered, okay? That's not what we're talking about. A safe environment is where individuals can feel free to share their feelings openly, without judgment, and with confidentiality. Okay, a safe environment also includes the utilization of empathy and active listening skills. It is essential to state that when a person vents, he or she may say things they do not necessarily mean at the moment. So refrain your judgments here. Part of venting includes a reduced filter in the things one says. As listeners, we can help the one venting to process what is occurring verbally, and we can actively listen. Now, as a communicator, both in listening and in speaking, it is crucial to understand the concepts presented in this video. Many of us work jobs that require an extensive amount of communication daily. In the moments when we hear the vent, it is important to use active listening skills and empathy in an environment that is safe and free of judgment. This conveys concern and deep care. Also, I implore those of you who don't have a safe person to vent to, that you gift the process to yourself. Now, venting alone is extremely powerful. I do it all the time. So long as you do not have an aggressive or bully for an inner or outer critic to contend with. Now, I'm going to do a video about the inner and outer critic and bully. Okay, really, really important. So if you have one of those, either internally or externally, don't do it yourself. Okay, now when I do it myself, I use a tape recorder or I use a journal. So, beloveds, please be compassionate towards yourself and each other regarding your sensitivities and also the lack of availability of our partners, family members, and friends. Okay? All right, my loves, that is my speech. I hope you found this helpful. So until next time, here's to your love, truth, and beauty, my love bugs. Mwah!